Hey Mike, there's some family drama going on with Sarah. Are you cool with her crashing at our place? My wife asked me one evening. I'd known Sarah for a while. She even stood as a witness at our wedding alongside Natalie and me. Can't say I was thrilled about the request, but I agreed nonetheless. Naively, I hoped Sarah would only stay for one night. What happened to her? I asked Natalie after she finished her phone call. Her husband kicked her out. What a jerk. Not only was he cheating on her, but he also blamed Sarah. How do you guys manage to find someone to blame in everything? Natalie vented. I shrugged. If what Natalie told me was true, Sarah's husband was indeed despicable. But I couldn't rule out the possibility that Sarah might have twisted things. Painting a man in a bad light seemed easy for woman. While Sarah made her way to our place, Natalie and I tried not to waste any time. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. One room for us and one for the kids. We had 2 boys, Paul and Kyle. So the question of where to accommodate Sarah, even for just one night, was pressing. We can't have her sleeping in the kitchen. The boys might come in at any moment. She won't even have privacy to change. How about this? I'll sleep in the kitchen tonight, and you and Sarah can stay in our room, I suggested to Natalie. She didn't argue. In such a situation, it was hard to come up with anything else. A couple of hours later, Sarah arrived. Her visit turned into a small evening gathering. Mike, you can't imagine how shameless he's become. I always suspected he was seeing someone else. But lately, he hasn't even bothered to hide his mistress from me. Sarah began recounting her woes. Despite being my wife's best friend and knowing each other for years, I'd never met Sarah's husband. We'd never crossed paths at any gatherings, and our families never went out together. So, I could only judge him based on what our guest said. The complaints about her husband stretched far into the night. Since it all happened in the kitchen, which doubled as my bedroom for the night, I had to endure all her venting, and my Natalie was nodding along with her friend. By the end of Sarah's stay that night, I was thoroughly fed up. Her endless complaints about her husband, with Natalie's constant agreement, grated on my nerves. I felt like I was in some sort of husband-hating club, and eventually started feeling like I was unnecessary. Mike, we need to talk. Remember our conversation yesterday about Natasha staying over just for one night? That kind of intro from my wife could only mean one thing. She's about to ask if I'm okay with Sarah staying longer. Clear as day. She just has nowhere else to go right now, and she hasn't had a chance to find an apartment yet. She's meeting with a realtor tonight. Once she finds a place, she won't be a bother anymore. I mean, I couldn't just kick my wife's friend out onto the street, could I? Sarah may be getting on my nerves, but turning away someone with nowhere to go crosses a line. The realtor meeting didn't go well. Sarah wasn't pleased with the apartment they offered. Now she was going to these meetings with realtors almost every day after work. It's not hard to guess that she was living with us during that time, turning the kitchen into my living room. At first, having a stranger in my apartment bothered me. I had to give up some habits. I couldn't even spend alone time with my wife because Sarah could walk into the room at any moment. But then I got used to it, and after a while, I even started seeing the benefits. One woman is good, but 2 are better. Sarah pitched in with chores, regularly cooked dinner, and even contributed to the rent at the end of the month. Meanwhile, I felt like Natalie and I were growing apart. She started spending all her free time with Sarah. I always thought that being jealous of your wife's friends was the last thing a man should do. But maybe, sooner than later, I might find myself among those ranks. Natalie, how about we go to the movies this weekend? My mom already agreed to take care of the kids. She's been missing them like crazy. We haven't been out together in ages, I suggested to my wife. Honestly, I didn't care much for going to the movies. I'm not a big fan of cinemas, but at that moment, it was important for me to make sure Natalie still wanted to spend time with me. Of course, you're right. It feels like ages since we went to the movies. I don't even know what's playing now. Where should we go? If you don't mind, I'll ask Sarah where she'd like to go, Natalie exclaimed cheerfully. Wait, why bring up Sarah all of a sudden? Did I invite Sarah a couple of minutes ago, or was it my wife I invited? And then it all fell into place. I think you won't mind if Sarah joins us, right? I don't want to leave her alone. She's going through a tough time. You don't know, but she filed for divorce yesterday, Natalie explained to me. And there I was, naive enough to think Sarah would reconcile with her husband sooner than find an apartment and leave ours. Now, it looks like it won't happen anytime soon. She filed for divorce just yesterday. So, she'll be hanging around our place for a while? I'm not one to make rash decisions. I've always been a supporter of well-thought-out choices. I can't remember what exactly drove me mad, but Sarah handled it like a pro. My hands were trembling with anger, and I was about to start a scene, but at the last moment, I restrained myself. There's no resolving anything with shouting and smashing dishes in this situation. It'll only make things worse because I saw how dependent Natalie was on Sarah, but I couldn't understand the secret of this dependency. First, I tried to put myself in Sarah's shoes, but I couldn't come up with anything worthwhile. I imagined having a fight with Natalie and leaving the house. Yes, I might crash at a friend's place for one night, but not longer. The next day, I'd be looking for an apartment. I don't see anything good in making people uncomfortable in their own home. And that's assuming, and I'm quite sure of this, that my friend wouldn't kick me out and, on the contrary, would suggest staying as long as possible. Besides, Natalie and I, along with our 2 kids, didn't live in a mansion where there would be plenty of room. We had a regular 2-bedroom apartment. Honestly, it's sometimes cramped for the 4 of us, and now Sarah too. Natalie, when is Sarah planning to leave? It's not really normal for her to live with us for so long. Can't she find an apartment? Or does she not have any relatives she can stay with? Mike, don't you know that Sarah's family's apartment is overcrowded? Her sister lives there with her husband, nephews, and her brother and his girlfriend drop by from time to time. 8 people in 3 rooms. So where else can Sarah go? But where does that leave us? There are 5 of us, but only 2 rooms. She can't keep living with us forever. After that conversation, Natalie was upset with me, and for the next few days, she only spoke to me when absolutely necessary. Vic, be careful. Soon Sarah will kick you out onto the balcony and then move your things to the garage. Watch out with this one. Women, they're so cunning, my friend and garage neighbor Anton advised me. But why should I worry? We'll see each other more often. I'll come visit you in the garage. With Anton, we met that evening at the bar near my house. After Sarah's fallout with her husband, I started dropping by there almost every day. Going straight home just wasn't appealing. In a way, Anton was right. Slowly but surely, Sarah was driving me out of the house. I wonder, was she doing it on purpose? And then I noticed that Natalie had changed her attitude towards men. I brought up the idea of Sarah finding her own place several times. What's Sarah bothering you for? She's not even bothering us in the slightest. You've got a couch, a TV, and a fridge full of food in the kitchen. What more do you need? Now Natalie, under her friend's influence, seemed to think that men were uncomplicated creatures, at the lowest rung of evolution. Anton was right. At this rate, I'd soon be living in the garage. A couch, a TV, and a fridge. All I needed for happiness. Talking to Natalie about Sarah moving out was pointless. I had a few more tricks up my sleeve to get rid of the persistent friend. The last resort was just kicking her out and throwing her belongings after her. But considering Sarah's influence on Natalie, I wasn't sure my wife wouldn't follow suit. So, I took a different approach. If before I only spoke about Sarah in whispers or in her absence, now I stopped restraining myself. I would bring up the topic of Sarah's move almost every evening, making sure her friend heard every word. It didn't help. Sarah was impenetrable. She continued to act as if nothing was happening, like she was oblivious to my stance. Although I'm sure she heard every conversation Natalie and I had. The situation took a drastic turn with an unexpected encounter. As usual, I spent my evenings after work in the bar, having a beer, and then a stranger sat down next to me. At first, I thought he mistook me for someone else. "You're Vic, right? The husband of my almost ex-wife, Sarah's friend?" the stranger asked me. I nodded. "I know Sarah is living with you." After those words, I thought he'd come to his senses and decided to take her back home. But no. "You better be careful with her. She ruined our family, and now I'm sure she's working on ruining yours." Yes, he hit the nail on the head. "Get her out of here." Do you think I couldn't live with her for a reason? Because she's a misandrist. She's all about relationships with women. She's a lesbian. I didn't expect such a turn of events, and what to do next? Did my wife get herself not a lover but a mistress right under my nose? Dealing with a lover would have been easier. At least you know how to act. But what do you do with a mistress? That evening, when I came home, I pulled my wife into the kitchen for a talk. I was determined. I couldn't believe my wife was setting me up with her lover right under my nose. Natalie didn't put up much resistance and confessed to everything. So, tell Sarah to pack her things right now. I don't care where she goes. We don't live in the Stone Age. Worst case scenario, she can spend the night in a hostel. Maybe she'll find her true love. If she doesn't pack, I'll help her and send her off the balcony for speed, I told Natalie, laying down the law. If you kick her out, I'll go with her. Natalie probably thought she could scare me and make me change my mind with this ultimatum. But I wasn't having any of it. Please, I can help you pack your things as well, for company. Natalie got upset and went to tell her lover everything, along with packing her things. She actually left with Sarah that evening. I had to tell the kids that Mom had gone to help Aunt Sarah settle into her new apartment. They seemed to believe it. Sarah and my wife's relationship didn't last long. About a week later, Natalie came home. We talked for a long time. She cried, asked for forgiveness. I told her I had forgotten everything, that I forgave her. But I'm not sure I really have. No matter how you spin it, Natalie cheated on me. Maybe not with a man, but cheating nonetheless. But we have 2 kids. I want them to grow up in a complete family. So, I made a condition for Natalie. There should be no more Sarah at our doorstep, and no other close friends who could ruin our family happiness. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.